Seductress. Or strategist. Or strategist.
The last Pharaoh of Egypt. A queen whose name, for 2,000 years, has been synonymous with seduction, scandal, and decadent tragedy. Cleopatra. Her story, as we know it, was written by her enemies, the Romans. They painted her as a foreign temptress, a serpent of the Nile, who used her beauty as a weapon to bewitch and weaken the great men of Rome. But what if this entire famous profile is a lie? What if it is one of the most successful character assassinations in all of history? Today, we are throwing out the Roman record. We will investigate the story of a brilliant political mind, a multilingual scholar, a ruthless commander, and the most dangerous rival the Roman Empire ever faced, all hidden behind the convenient mask of a seductress. This is the true story of Cleopatra. To understand the queen, we must first look at the world that forged her. Cleopatra was not Egyptian by blood. She was a Ptolemy, Tia, descended from a long line of Greek Macedonian rulers who inherited Egypt after Alexander the Great. But unlike her ancestors, she embraced the land she ruled. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler in 300 years to learn the native Egyptian language, an act that earned her the deep love of her people. Her education in Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the ancient world, was formidable. Surrounded by the scrolls of the great library, she became a polymath, fluent in at least 9 languages, and deeply studied in mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine. She was not just a pretty face, she was one of the most educated rulers of her time. She ascended to a throne on the brink of collapse, with a weak economy, internal strife from her rival siblings, and the ever-growing shadow of Rome threatening to swallow her kingdom whole. She knew from the very beginning that her only weapons were her brilliant mind and her unshakable will to preserve Egypt's independence against the greatest superpower the world had ever seen. Cleopatra's first great political maneuver was a masterstroke of audacity. Driven from her own palace by her younger brother and rival, Ptolemy XIII, she knew she had one chance to regain power. A direct appeal to the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar, who had just arrived in Egypt pursuing his own civil war. Barred from seeing him by her brother's forces, she devised a legendary plan. She had herself rolled up in a fine carpet and had her loyal servant smuggle her past the guards, right into Caesar's private chambers. Imagine the scene. A carpet is unrolled, and from it emerges not a gift, but a queen, charismatic and brilliant, ready to state her case. This was not seduction. This was a high-risk, special operation, a political gambit that bypassed all protocols, and placed her directly in front of the only man who could decide her fate. Caesar, a man who appreciated boldness and intelligence, was immediately impressed. He backed her claim to the throne, and their subsequent relationship became a powerful political alliance against her rivals and his own enemies in Rome. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra secured her throne. Their alliance produced a son, Caesarion, Little Caesar, a child who represented a monumental threat to the Roman Republic. Cleopatra then made her boldest move yet, traveling to Rome and establishing herself in a lavish villa. Her presence caused a massive scandal. The Romans, who valued conservative traditions, were horrified by this opulent, intelligent, and powerful foreign queen. They saw her not as an ally, but as a corrupting influence, a monarch who might convince their beloved dictator, Caesar, to abandon the republic and declare himself a king with her as his queen. Her dream was a vast, unified Mediterranean empire ruled by their son, a fusion of Roman might and Egyptian wealth. But this grand ambition was shattered on the Ides of March when Caesar was assassinated by senators who feared his power. With her protector dead and her status in Rome now perilous, Cleopatra was forced to flee back to Egypt with her son. Her grand plan in ruins, and her kingdom once again vulnerable. After Caesar's death, Cleopatra needed a new Roman ally. She found one in Mark Antony, Caesar's charismatic general. Their first official meeting at Tarsus was not a simple negotiation. It was Cleopatra's masterpiece of soft power. Antony had summoned her to answer for her supposed disloyalty. She arrived not as a supplicant, but as a goddess. She sailed up the river Cydnus in a magnificent golden barge with purple sails and silver oars, herself dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, surrounded by her handmaidens. The entire city turned out to witness the spectacle, leaving Antony waiting alone in the marketplace. This was not a woman trying to seduce a man. This was a queen demonstrating that her wealth, her culture, and her divine status were equal, if not superior, to Rome's military might. Their subsequent alliance was both political and personal, a genuine partnership to rule the eastern half of the Roman world. With Alexandria as its glittering capital, a direct challenge to the ambitions of Antony's rival, Octavian. The final chapter is a tragedy. The combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra were defeated by Octavian at the naval battle of Actium. But even in defeat, Cleopatra's final act was one of calculated, sovereign power. Hearing a false report of her death, Antony took his own life. Cleopatra, now a captive of Octavian, knew her fate: to be paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, a living trophy of his victory. She refused to grant him this satisfaction. In a final, defiant act, she smuggled in a poisonous asp, possibly hidden in a basket of figs, and chose a pharaoh's death. This was not the act of a heartbroken lover. It was the final political statement of a queen who who refuse to be humiliated. The Roman propaganda was ultimately successful. They conquered her kingdom and rewrote her story. But the evidence of history shows us a different woman, a brilliant, courageous, and ruthless queen who played the game of power at the highest level against the greatest empire in the world and nearly won.